All right, DBT, who wants to start?
Frank, I can go. So one that I really like that I tell my clients about a lot is the radical acceptance. So accepting a problem for what it is, which can be difficult because we often will revert to like victim mentality, or this isn't fair, this shouldn't happen to me. But if we can move into more of a solution focused approach where we're like, okay, well, what now? How can we accept this? And even accepting the problem doesn't have to be the same thing as liking or condoning something. But as we learn to accept the problems that are out of our control, it can lead to less anxiety, anger, and sadness when dealing with them. So one of the situations that I can give you is you find out that you're not selected for a job where you felt like you're the best candidate. Typical thinking would look like, this isn't fair. I did everything right. I was the best one there. They can't do this to me. Whereas radical acceptance would be framed, it's frustrating that I didn't get the job, but I accept that they felt someone else was a better fit. And there's actually a TED Talk that does a really good job at explaining radical acceptance that I've shared with my clients before, so I can email that to the team.
Okay, good. Thank you, Stacy.
Yes.
What is DBT therapy? Can anybody give us just what does it stand for? What?
Dialectical behavioral therapy. Sorry.
Okay. All right.
It was born out of cognitive behavioral therapy. The part of it that I like using with my clients that I've used in the past is the cognitive distortions. They are things like magnification and minimization, where people will look at their problems and kind of either make the thing that they're dealing with bigger than it really is, or minimize the problem, or compare themselves to others. There's a whole compartmentalization. There's a whole handout I have on that that I use with clients. So it's a really good approach because it really aims to change behaviors. And sometimes CBT doesn't work if your client doesn't want to do homework. So dialectical behavioral therapy, focusing on behavior change and kind of doing the homework in the session, has worked for a lot of my clients.
Before I started really paying more attention to DBT, it seemed like a very vague modality. And that's because it originates from everything that worked for therapists. The person, let's see, what's her name? Marsha Linehan. She just went around and asked lots of therapists, well, what works in your practice? And then she kind of cobbled them all together. So it does seem like this mishmash of lots of different things, and not really unified. But at its core, people are learning how to accept what is and change what they can change. And what I found to be effective is, I got this book a while ago. It's DBT Skills.
Can you share that in an email?
Yes, I can. And I got this from Guilford Press. And the great thing about this is when you buy it, you also get it in digital form. So you can pull up the pages, share it on your screen with your client, and you can type in what they're telling you as they're telling you, and you can work together. And then I email them whatever we did at the end of the session. What I've found to really help with some of my clients is distress tolerance exercises. Specifically the pros and cons of their reaction to something that that they're getting ready to do. That's really helped them to stop reacting and actually doing other things that are a lot more skillful. And there are, I guess for me, like I'm a categories kind of person. There are four main categories in DBT. There's emotional regulation, interpersonal effectiveness, distress tolerance, and mindfulness. And in those four, there are lots of exercises that you can do with clients.
So there are a lot of times in session with clients where two things will happen because life is not black and white. Oftentimes it's gray. So they have a hard time reconciling one thing happening with the other. So I think, as everyone mentioned, it's really a process of acceptance. And so I'll say that two things can be true at once, as a reminder for clients to understand. And for me, as a reminder of myself as a therapist, to understand that there is a process of accepting that it's not just this thing or that thing, right? It's not either black or white. Sometimes it's gray, and sometimes that's hard as individuals to process, to understand, to sit with. So sometimes that's what therapy ends up being, is sitting with that understanding. And that could take some time.
I was just going to talk about the same thing that was already said. And then also a lot of my teen clients, my mainly female teen clients, because that's mainly what I have right now, have really been utilizing a lot of the DBT skills. For example, like ice and pressure and heat to avoid self-harming. And that's been really supportive to them. And they like that they still get their release, but it's not in a harmful way.
I didn't want to dominate. It's just out there yet. When you were talking about two things can be true at once for the children that people see or parents of children. This is a very favorite book of mine that I use in therapy with kids. It's called Double Dip Feelings. And it helps kids understand that they can have more than one feeling at the same time. And it's written by a social worker. So it's one of my favorite books I use with kids. Double Dip Feelings.
Excellent.
I wanted to add, to piggyback off of two things can exist at once. There's this exercise that I like to do when I'm in person with my clients. Sometimes the families, they'll argue and say, well, how can you say that this is true? That never happened. So, like the crazy person that I am, I'll march everybody outside and I'll say, tell me three things that you see. And the family will go down the list and they'll be like, I see a tree. I saw a blue car. And I'll have us all turn around and face the building. And I'll say, were any of the things that you saw untrue? So was she lying about what she saw? Was she not telling the truth? And it blows their mind to say, wow, two things can really exist at once. Another person can have another perception of what's going on. And when I'm on the computer, I'll have them look around my room and say, what do you see? So I like what Elzaria said.
Absolutely.
So you just mentioned a DBT activity where you take them outside. I like that. And I wondered if anyone else on the team here has done, because I feel like my caseload is going to have a lot of kids. That's why my hours are till 7 p.m. so that it has time for kids to be off school. It's not necessarily DBT, but I do have little things that I got from TEMU.com, TEMU. I don't know if you guys know about that, but they're little balls that you can throw, and they have where you catch them and your thumbs land on them. So a whole bag of stuff like that. But I wondered what other things you guys might have used to be active with kids, because as we all know, kids are not going to sit on your couch or your chair and have a therapy session like that. So
Uno, guess who? You just want their hands moving, and then you'll have to be slick about how you employ the skills. But I found that they will talk with Uno, and they forget that they're even in a session. I don't do things like chess because Lord knows I can't play no chess. But
I do
chess,
do
I mean, not
Jenga,
chess,
but
but I can't play it. But I like Uno, guess who? That little game where you like flip it and they have to, does the person have black hair? Are they wearing glasses? That game. And Jenga. Sometimes
What do
you
you
can
do
write
with Uno?
things on the Jenga blocks, huh?
Yeah, you can, I do the Jenga one. I have the life-size Jenga that kind of stacks up from the floor, but what do you do with Uno? I'm curious.
Well, you can first you got to just play it regular, and then what you'll do is you'll decide like for every color, not every single time because they'll start to get annoyed, but like let's say put red down and you've been talking for like 10 minutes with them, and you'll say, "Well, when was the last time you felt angry?" You know, like, and they'll start to tell you. Sometimes you might have to be a little slick and say, "Man, I remember getting angry when this and this happened to me." Kind of like open up and normalize the conversation and make anger like a normal thing that we all feel. So it just depends on what you want to anger. Red, happy was green. Feeling slow and sluggish was yellow, I believe. I haven't done that in a while, but that's what I would do with Uno when I was doing it.
Cool. Like it.
I've also done Uno, and it's the same thing, but I used it in conjunction with something called zones of regulation for kids, where they can exactly like the game that you were talking about, which is really great. And you can use the zones and Uno because they're the same colors, and it works really well. And I also use this tool to teach like breathing. So, because kids tend to be fidgety, so when you breathe in and then breathe out, so they can like visually see it. But then they could also fidget with it for the whole session, just like I do. So we have a good time with that.
I like that everyone mentioned Uno. That's a pretty good one. And you can get a variety of kids, and then also teenagers like it too. Sometimes they love winning for sure. That's another one. But I also think maybe using charades too, to kind of work through what does it look like for you when you're angry? What does it look like for you when you're sad, right? So you write the emotions on the paper, and it's either your job or their job to kind of guess the emotion. Art therapy works really well too. You don't have to be an artist to do that, but just using art to express emotions. And then lastly, music, right? Teenagers love music, kids love music. It's a great rapport builder. And then it's also a great way to connect and understand deeper than sometimes words can.
I love the
I don't work.
idea of art.
Oh,
I'm
go ahead,
sorry,
Stacey.
because with my young kids, they, it's interesting that if they use a lot of red, you know what I mean, they don't really realize it. Or even with grief, sometimes you don't know how to express how you feel with words, but what can you draw? What can you use with color? And I was going to piggyback. Hudamath.com has some good interactive games that you can use with children, or I've had like adult autistic individuals like the Connect 4 option, because you could do virtual and do that. Or what else? I was gonna say something else. Let's see. Sorry, I'm looking up this double dip feelings book so I can make sure I get that. Let's see. So the Hudamath, and then there's CBT Jeopardy. So if you just Google that, CBT Jeopardy for kids, you can also do that virtually. You could just it was hudamath.com. But anyway, CBT Jeopardy for kids, then you can just virtually play that with kids. I think that's a good way for them to understand the concepts of CBT while also keeping them engaged.
I've done Jeopardy before. I really like that a lot. The other thing too, if you guys don't know about therapistaid.com, you probably know about that. It's like $9 a month, but for your IEP, not necessarily IEP, but ADHD young kids, there's a really fun game on there called Focus Fish. It's pretty cool.
I was going to suggest too, I don't work with kids anymore, but for really young kids, they really love bubbles as a way of creating mindfulness moments throughout the session. And then the other tool that I think is super, super helpful is the sand tray. So that's my 2 cents.
There's an online one for that too, for telehealth clients.
Yeah, I've seen it. It's pretty interesting. I was never able to get it to work with therapy now, but yeah.
Very cool.
I put it in another browser.
Some really quick techniques, April, or for anyone, for working with kids, in person, my very favorite cheap, play therapy tool is pickup sticks. Because it is, have you ever played pickup sticks?
When I was younger, but I can't
You can
remember.
order them online. It's very cheap. It's like a whole bunch of thin sticks. Be careful if they're pointy, but in person, because it's a game that's very easy to cheat. So you can observe whether someone, the kid's tempted to cheat. It takes focus. It does the same thing as playing other things like Uno, to get kids to talk at the same time. You can help them with organization because there's different colors, so you can make up rules. So that's my favorite in-person tool, and I had teenagers who liked it, or taught parents how to play with their kids in person or online. You can buy cards that there's so many card decks that have different faces on them for the different emotions. But I've also, if a parent likes them, I've also made it an activity where you can get index cards, and it's like combining art therapy with it. And you can do this online as well. So if you make up your own set and then tell them to have a toolkit of supplies every time they're going to sign in online. So some of the supplies that you tell the kids to have are the paper and pencil, crayons, colored pencils, and if you're going to do an activity the next week that you need them, so index cards. So I've used index cards to make up the emotion flashcards, and then you make up stories from the emotion flashcards. There are breathing, mindfulness kind of activities that get hidden with some of the kinds of games you can play, and you can push your chair away and to see more of the room. If you're an online kind of person, where you can do Simon Says. I just saw this yesterday from someone else about how you're really getting your movement done if you do the hokey pokey. It's back, forth, shake it all around. So, that's a good one. And then there's a mirroring technique, which is not the same thing as mirroring in imago therapy. It's what I call mirroring. It's kind of like charades. So you make up, you might put your hand, I tell kids they love it. Okay, put your hands in front of your face and make me a sad face. And so you can do a charades kind of thing where without talking, you do some movement and you get the client or the kid to copy your movement like a mirror. And what did that feel like while you were doing it? And it might just be doing silly stuff and to help them to laugh. But if you are getting them to mirror walking really slow, what does that feel like as your shoulders are down and you're walking really slow? So you can have them walk like different animals. So those are just a few, some real quick techniques for working with kids that could be adapted online or in person.
Oh, they had Lori to provide a training on grief. My name's April. Sorry.
Hi, April. Nice.
No, that's
Is that something else?
That's an AI note taker.
Oh, okay. Well, the AI didn't pick up because of
April, just one more thing. I used to like, you just take a regular popsicle stick, and if
Mhm.
you ever have to do like a in person with the parent, you write I like on one side and tape it, and then I don't like when you. So the parent and the children will sit there and they'll say, I like when you clean up after yourself. And then the flip side of the other popsicle stick, they may say, I don't like it when you yell at me. So that's one that I found very useful in sessions, even with teens. And then one more thing is with the younger population, sometimes they come in and they don't know how to express. So you get them to draw how they see themselves. And then the second portion, which it might take you a couple weeks, but how does mommy see you? How does daddy see you? How does sissy see you? And you'll be surprised at how much you can get from that. And doing like a little genogram where they draw their family and you have like a representation of a strong bond, a weak bond, um, so bond, whatever it is that you come up with, and they walk it through and they explain to you like, and you really get to see what the family dynamic looks like. Just my little addition.
I like it.
Other than the task of mourning, what was the other one called for grief?
The dual process model. It's STR. If you just Google dual process model, it's like STROET. It's kind of like it looks like a Venn diagram of sorts. You've seen a Venn diagram, right? Where you have two
Yes.
circles and there's
Yes.
things in the middle, and especially talking about how you during grief, when you're experiencing grief, you will alternate between the different functions in life. Like you'll have grief one day and then you'll be go to work one day, and it's kind of, there's a whole thing like that. I actually have a I don't know how long this is, but I have a diagram that's here with me.